Excellent. All right, gentlemen. And fists up. Terence, good. Excellent. Great. Excellent. Wonderful.
Crawford, because we are two fighters.
Yeah, two fighters, but
True fighters.
true, yeah, of course. No, not YouTuber fighter.
Huh?
Not YouTuber fighters. Yeah, of course.
They need to talk and talk chat about the fight because they want to sell something. The people know we are great fighters. They want to put a great fucking fight.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk
I
shit about
am
it.
sure. I am sure. In the end in the mid of September, we will have one of the greatest fights ever happen in boxing, and I am sure of that. I am sure of that.
So after Turki announced the biggest fight in boxing, Canelo Alvarez versus Crawford, he sent a message to the entire sport by stating, quote, "From this point on, I don't want to see any more Tom and Jerry type of boxing matches where one fighter is running around the ring and the other is chasing him. We can no longer support these kind of boxing fights with Riyadh season and the ring. We want to support fighters who leave it all in the ring and fight with their heart and pride." End of the quote. We all know Turki is the billion-dollar man, and the million-dollar question is, or the billion-dollar question is, identify running. What's running? Is it Muhammad Ali dancing around the ring, flying like a butterfly, stinging like a bee? Obviously not. It can't be, because that's the definition of boxing, is hit and not get hit. It's the bull and the matador. Where are you gonna run? There are four corners in the ring. There is no place to run to. So Turki has to identify running, especially if he's gonna ban fighters from running on Riyadh season. That's almost becoming like a rule. You know, if you're doing this, you are losing points. Is it fair? That goes back to the billion-dollar question that needs to be identified. What's running? Because Muhammad Ali, he flew like a butterfly and sting like a bee. That's not running. Sugar Ray Leonard, he moved around the ring all day, night. That's not running. So what is running? Floyd moved around the ring. That's not running. Crawford even moved around the ring, a fight or two. Even Roy Jones did. Every great fighter did. I'm talking about the greatest of all time, along with below that tier, whether that's Manny Pacquiao, Usyk, Lomachenko. A lot of fighters on the hope list was moving around the ring also. A lot of fighters like Oscar De La Hoya, when he fought Trinidad, he was moving around the ring. Does that make them all runners? Well, the difference between the two is the one that's moving around, throwing and landing punches versus the one that's moving around, not throwing punches, and vice versa for the fighter that's coming forward. If he's just coming forward, not throwing punches, or if he's actually throwing punches. You have to factor all that in. I mean, Ryan versus Rolly was a boring fight, and they stood in front of each other, which is why the rules has to be identified, especially with Crawford fighting Canelo. Part of his strategy has to be lateral movements. He has to move around the ring and force Canelo to pick up his slow feet. You cannot take that element away from Crawford. That's like fighting handicapped at that point. Imagine and telling Canelo you can't fight coming forward, only going backward or standing where you are. You can't just force that type of rule. However, if Turki identifies running as a fighter who moves around the ring without throwing punches for a long period of time, then you can say that's running. Oscar did that against Trinidad, which cost him the fight. Sugar Ray Leonard, on the other hand, did it against Hagler, and he won the fight. He did it against Hearns. He won the fight, but he had to switch up his game. I mean, this rule Turki just threw out will throw a fighter like Sugar Ray Leonard, who's a top 5 of all time, completely out of his game. Because remember, when he fought Emotional the first time against Duran, he ended up losing in a tough fight. because he fought Duran fight. However, in the rematch, Sugar Ray Leonard made Duran quit because he was able to fight his fight, which is lateral movement, running. Imagine Sugar Ray Leonard is not allowed to move. Then he wouldn't have been able to make Duran quit the way he did. That's why it's really highly unlikely that that's what Turki is referring to. He has to be referring to the recent events he held from Canelo versus Skull to Ryan versus Rolly, Devin Haney versus Ramirez, and Tio versus Barboza. Really, all of these fights were boring. Teofimo versus Barboza was definitely a boring fight. That fight was not entertaining. They throw it all on Devin, but Ramirez was the one not doing anything. What did Ryan do without PEDs? He lost to Rolly, who got smoked by Pitbull. So you let that sink in. Ryan fight was boring. Ryan and Rolly moved less, but it was a much slower fight. It was more boring than the Devin Haney fight for real. Canelo versus Skull, the same thing. Canelo couldn't cut off the ring, and Skull was really outboxing him, but he wasn't letting his hands go. And that's how he lost the fight. So, from Turki calling in to the press conference in New York, Edgar and Shakur was there, and he let them know what it is along with the other fighters. But I felt like that was more so toward Shakur because of Devin Haney versus Ramirez. Devin Haney received a lot of hate, even though he just got cheated, right? And Ryan received less attention, criticism, and everything than Devin Haney. Anyway, in my eyes, clearly Turki is sending a message to fighters like Devin Haney and Shakur. But the $1 million question is, how is that going to affect them in the negotiations table? Clearly, it didn't affect them yet. Shakur and Devin Haney got fights coming up. However, is it going to affect them in the future? For now, Devin Haney, that's not the case for him. He has a great relationship with Turki. At least that's what appears to the market. Now, obviously, Turki knows Devin Haney just got cheated, so he's still trying to get back. On the other hand, he also put a great offer for Devin Haney on the table to fight Tio, and it was Tio who turned down the fight. So far, that hasn't affected Devin Haney much. However, for sure, what's going to affect Devin Haney and Shakur, Crawford, and any fighter that moves around the ring is the scoring system. When the judges hear what Turki just said, that rings a bell in their ear. It's an unspoken rule, and it may affect these fighters that way. With that being said, go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comment section below. In your own words, identify running in the sport of boxing. Subscribe below, and to be continued on the next episode of Akhi, TV. Peace out. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.